When you live in a place where sunlight barely sneaks in, finding the right houseplants can feel like trying to grow a garden in a cave. But trust me, you've got way more options than you think. Some plants are actually built for the shadows, thriving in corners most greenery would panic in. Today we're diving into the toughest low-light houseplants, the kind that stay green even when your blinds stay closed. Whether you're in a dim apartment, a basement office, or you just forget to open the curtains, these champions won't judge you. They adapt fast, keep their color, and won't make you feel like a bad plant parent. We're talking plants that handle neglect with style. Get ready to meet the low-light legends that can survive almost anything. Let's jump in and make your darkest rooms feel alive. Spider plants are honestly one of the easiest survivors you can bring home, especially if your place barely gets any sunlight. They can handle light levels as low as 50 to 150 lux, which is basically the brightness of a hallway, and they still keep pushing out fresh green arching leaves like nothing happened. They don't ask for much either, just a light watering every week or so and well-draining soil so their roots don't sit soggy, making them perfect for anyone who forgets their plants on busy days. What makes them even more impressive is how they clean the air. NASA's research showed they can reduce indoor pollutants like formaldehyde by up to 90% in a controlled environment, turning dull rooms into fresher spaces. And when they're happy, they send out little baby spiderettes you can repot to multiply, which feels like the plant version of free bonus content. Jade plants are tough little powerhouses that handle low light way better than most people expect, especially once they settle into a spot and start storing energy in those thick, glossy leaves. They can tolerate light levels around 150 to 300 lux, which is the same as a dim bedroom, and they'll still hold their shape and rich green color without stretching or dropping leaves. Watering is ridiculously simple too. Every 2 to 3 weeks is usually enough because their succulent leaves store moisture, and as long as the soil drains well, they stay perfectly healthy. What makes them stand out in low-light homes is how long they live. Some jade plants have been known to survive for decades, turning into miniature trees that feel like part of the family. And here's a fun fact. Many people consider them a symbol of good luck and prosperity, so having one thriving in a low-light corner almost feels like having your own small green fortune keeper. Pothos is one of those plants that basically laughs at low light and keeps growing like it's on a mission, which is why so many apartments, offices, and dorm rooms rely on it to bring life into dark corners. It can tolerate extremely low levels of light, even dropping down to 20 to 50 lux, and still send out long trailing vines without losing its vibrant color. Watering is easy too. Every 7 to 10 days is usually enough, and as long as the soil isn't constantly wet, Pothos stays problem-free and keeps chugging along. What really makes it a low-light legend is how efficiently it freshens indoor air. Several studies showed it can help reduce toxins like benzene and xylene, making your space feel cleaner with zero effort. And here's the fun part. Even in a low-light setup, cuttings root incredibly fast in water, so you can turn one plant into 5, just by placing a few stems in a jar. Cast iron plant lives up to its name, because this thing can survive in spots where most plants would absolutely give up, making it a true champion for homes with almost no natural light. It tolerates levels as low as 25 to 50 lux, basically the brightness of a nightlight, and still keeps those deep green, elegant leaves looking strong without fading or stretching. It barely needs water. Every 2 to 3 weeks works fine, and as long as the soil is well draining and not constantly wet, it stays healthy for years with almost zero maintenance. What really sets it apart is its lifespan. Some cast iron plants have been documented living for decades in the same low-light conditions, earning a reputation as one of the toughest houseplants around. And a fun fact people love. It was once used to decorate Victorian-era homes and even dim pubs, because it could handle smoke, dust, and poor air circulation without flinching. Air plants are basically the definition of low-maintenance survivors, and they handle low light surprisingly well, as long as they're not stuck in complete darkness all day. They can manage in soft, indirect light around 100 to 200 lux, which is similar to a shaded shelf or a room with small windows, and they stay healthy without ever touching soil. Instead, they absorb moisture and nutrients straight from the air through their trichomes, so a quick misting a few times a week or a 20-minute soak every 7 to 10 days is all they need to stay fresh and vibrant. They're incredibly adaptable too. NASA even studied how epiphytes like air plants can thrive in low-resource environments, showing just how efficient they are at pulling in what they need with very little help. And the fun part? They grow in the coolest ways. Hung on driftwood, tucked into shells, or displayed in glass orbs. instantly adding a modern, artistic vibe to any low-light corner, without ever asking for potting soil or complicated care. Aloe might be famous as a sun-loving plant, but what most people don't realize is that some varieties handle low light surprisingly well, especially when they've adapted to indoor conditions over time. In softer rooms with around 150 to 300 lux, think shaded living rooms or bathrooms, it still keeps those thick, juicy leaves firm because it stores tons of moisture inside. Watering is almost effortless. Every 2 to 3 weeks is enough since aloe hates sitting in wet soil, and a gritty, well-draining mix keeps its roots healthy without any drama. What makes it great for low-light homes is how slow and steady it grows, so even without strong sun, it stays compact, clean-looking, and easy to manage without constant trimming. And here's a fun fact people love. Aloe gel contains over 75 active compounds, and while yours won't pump out massive amounts in low light, it still produces enough to soothe the occasional burn or skin irritation, making it not just a survivor, but a handy little natural first aid plant too. String of pearls might look delicate with its little bead-like leaves, but it's shockingly good at handling low-light conditions once it settles into a cozy indoor spot. It can tolerate light levels around 150 to 250 lux, which is about the brightness of a shaded room, and it still keeps its long cascading strands firm, because each tiny pearl stores extra moisture like a built-in survival kit. Watering is easy too. Every 2 weeks is usually enough, and as long as the soil drains fast, it won't get mushy or stressed even in dimmer spaces. What makes it especially cool is how efficiently it uses energy. Its round leaves reduce water loss, letting it thrive where other trailing plants would stunt or fade. And a fun fact that surprises most people: a mature string of pearls can trail up to 3 feet or more indoors, creating those dramatic hanging curtains even when it's growing far from bright windows. Philodendron is one of those plants that seems like it was built for low-light living. Happily thriving in spaces where sunlight barely shows up, it can handle levels as low as 50 to 100 lux, basically the brightness of a hallway, and still keep its big lush leaves looking full without getting leggy or losing color. Watering is super simple because philodendrons prefer to dry out a bit between drinks. Every 7 to 10 days with well-draining soil keeps them perfectly steady. What really makes them top-tier survivors is how efficiently they convert even tiny amounts of light into energy, which is why they stay green and strong when other plants start struggling. And here's a fun little fact. Some philodendron varieties can grow several feet indoors, slowly turning into statement plants that make any low-light corner feel tropical, even if you never open your curtains. Jade Plant is a slow-growing little tank that handles low-light homes far better than most people give it credit for, especially once it gets comfortable in a steady spot. It can tolerate light levels around 150 to 300 lux, basically the brightness of a dim bedroom, and it still keeps those thick, glossy leaves packed with moisture so it doesn't stretch or lose shape. Watering is almost effortless since it stores water like a camel. Every 2 to 3 weeks is usually enough, as long as the soil drains well and isn't kept soggy. What makes jade stand out in low-light conditions is how incredibly long it can live. Some have survived for decades indoors, turning into mini tree-like plants that feel almost symbolic. And here's a fun fact people love. Jade plants are widely believed to bring prosperity and positive energy, so having one thriving in a low-light corner feels a bit like keeping a tiny green good luck charm in your home. Snake plant is practically built for low-light survival, which is why it's one of the first plants people recommend for dim apartments, offices, or bedrooms. It can tolerate light levels as low as 25 to 50 lux, basically the brightness of a hallway at night, and it still keeps those tall, upright leaves firm without fading or drooping. Watering is unbelievably easy because snake plants store moisture in their thick leaves, so every 2 to 3 weeks is usually perfect, as long as the soil drains well and isn't constantly wet. What makes it a low-light superstar is its efficiency. Studies show it can convert carbon dioxide into oxygen even at night, making it one of the best plants to keep in low-ventilated rooms. And a fun fact that surprises people: snake plants have been known to live for decades with minimal care, turning into gorgeous clusters that look sculptural even when they're left alone for weeks. Haworthia is one of those underrated little succulents that handles low-light homes way better than most people expect, especially with its compact shape and slow, steady growth. It can tolerate light levels around 100 to 200 lux, similar to a shaded shelf or a room with filtered daylight. And it keeps those thick, striped leaves firm, because each one stores extra moisture, like a built-in backup system. Watering is simple too. Every 2 to 3 weeks is plenty, and as long as the soil drains quickly, Haworthia stays healthy without stretching or getting mushy in dimmer areas. What really makes it shine in low light is how efficient it is with energy. Instead of chasing the sun, it stays compact and keeps its color, making it perfect for desks, corners or shelves where most succulents would struggle. And here's a fun fact. Some Haworthia species can live 10 years or more indoors with barely any fuss, quietly becoming one of the most reliable low-light companions you can own. Jade Plant is basically the gold standard for low-light survivors, thriving in places where most plants would throw in the towel. It can handle extremely low light, down to around 20 to 50 lux, which is basically the brightness of a room with the curtains closed, and it still keeps those glossy, deep green leaves looking polished and healthy. Watering is incredibly low effort, because its rhizomes store tons of moisture, so every 2 to 3 weeks is more than enough, as long as the soil drains well and isn't kept constantly wet. What makes the Jade plant almost unbeatable is its ability to stay green and upright even when you forget about it for long stretches, making it a favorite for offices, hallways and low-light apartments. And here's a fun fact. Jade plants have been found growing naturally in rocky, shaded forests in East Africa, which explains why they're so good at surviving poor lighting, irregular watering, and general neglect without losing their shine. Monstera is surprisingly good at handling low-light conditions, especially once it adapts to an indoor space, where sunlight barely trickles in. It can manage in light levels around 75 to 150 lux, similar to a shaded living room, and it still keeps those broad, iconic leaves looking lush, even if they develop fewer splits in dimmer areas. Watering is easy. Every 7 to 10 days works well because Monstera likes its soil to dry slightly between drinks, and a chunky, well-draining mix keeps the roots healthy without trapping moisture. What really makes Monstera a low-light favorite is its efficient growth system. Instead of collapsing without sun, it slows down, but stays strong and vibrant, making it perfect for corners most plants would struggle in. And here's a fun fact. Monsteras naturally grow under dense jungle canopies in Central America, climbing tree trunks in search of light, which is why they're so good at surviving inside homes where bright sun isn't always available. Tree Philodendron is a surprisingly tough low-light survivor, especially for a plant with such big, dramatic leaves that look like they belong in a bright tropical garden. It handles light levels around 75 to 150 lux, about the brightness of a shaded living room, and it still keeps those large, deeply lobed leaves firm without getting leggy or weak. Watering is easy because it prefers a rhythm of drying slightly between drinks. Every 7 to 10 days with well-draining soil keeps it steady and prevents root issues. What makes it stand out in low-light homes is how efficiently it uses whatever light it gets, slowly pushing out new leaves even in dim corners, without losing its bold sculptural shape. And a fun fact most people don't know. Mature tree philodendrons can live for decades indoors, and in their native habitat they grow under dense canopies, which explains why they stay strong and impressive even when your windows barely bring in sunlight. And that wraps up our list of low-light champions. Plants that don't just survive tough conditions, they thrive in them. Whether your place feels more like a cozy cave than a bright greenhouse, you can still build a lush green space without stressing over sunlight or constant care. These plants prove that even the darkest corners can look alive and inviting with the right choices. If you found a new favorite to add to your home, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a like, and leave a comment telling me which one you're bringing home next. Let's keep growing your indoor jungle, one easy plant at a time.